Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. I feel so blessed with what I get to do, with this podcast impact is having, the message we receive on a weekly basis. I started this podcast as a passion project and didn't really know where it was going to go, and I really feel like it's been guided. We now release 2 episodes a week in the global top 2%, get messages on a weekly basis. It's clearly having an impact. So thank you if you're a regular listener. Welcome if you're new. And please let us know if you're having feedback. Also, let us know if anything resonated from this episode, or also if there's any topics you'd like us to talk about. And as always, please do like and follow, share the episode. It really does help. I am an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. I love what I get to do. I get to guide people on their journey, holding their space to truly understand why they're here, releasing anything we're holding on to, any programming, personal, ancestral, and just guiding people on the journey. I really feel like now this is kind of what people need. I feel like we're going through such a shift on the planet, and everyone is going through something. And my voice is a bit croaky today. I apologize. My physical body is going through something, and it feels like so many of us are. But my commitment is to keep showing up. And I may cough during this episode, and maybe my voice is not as I don't know, not as strong, whatever word you want to use, but I still wanted to show up. And this podcast wouldn't be where it is today without my beautiful, stunning co-host, introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire, and published author, Stacey Brown. Stacey, you know, I got to do it. You know what I mean? Wouldn't be the same without me introducing you that way. You know?
No, people would think something was wrong.
I know.
It's so good to be here, friends. Thank you for joining us on another episode. If you're new here, we're excited to have you. And if you've been listening for a while, we're grateful for you. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from around the world. I'm also an Akashic record reader and a spiritual coach and mentor. I have a book that I published in 2023 called Journey to Soul Center: Discovering the Gift of Surrender. It's available on Amazon and Audible. I feel really honored to be in this space and to get to use my voice to help people in this way. And I'm really looking forward to today's episode. And Nim's, way to go on still showing up.
Thank you. It's the only way I know how to be. It's just, yeah, that's my deal with my guides and God. Just keep showing up. So yeah. So every week we kind of pick a topic that we feel is relevant to the current energy. And you probably hear me talking quite often about, and also through the records, that this is a time where we're still in a phase of completion, but where we should look at the people in our world and really ask, is the soul contract with this person complete? So we thought we'd dive a bit deeper into that this week and have a deeper conversation around soul contracts and how they run their course. How do you recognize soul contracts, and really dive deeper into the topic. So I'll give you my truth on what I feel a soul contract is. And this will come from a lot of learnings around Sidra and other people. For those that don't know, Sidra was my mentor, my friend. She passed away a few years ago, and she's now a spiritual guide. And a lot of my teachings do come from her. And it's a soul contract I will talk later about in this episode. But for me, soul contracts are decided, especially the major ones, before we incarnate into our physical body. Our soul knows what it's here to experience, what it needs to experience in terms of how it needs to expand, and how it needs to expand, and also the karma it needs to release. And that could be personal ancestral karma. So, that karma, that what it needs to release could be falling in love and having the heartbroken. So, you know that this is what you need to experience in this life. And then what the soul then does is goes and typically finds familiar souls, and you have a soul contract. And that soul contract could be, as an example, to fall in love, have a partnership, and then go through heartbreak. And you go deeper with this because some of the souls that you connect with, maybe you've had past lives with, and you have karma to complete. And that karma could include heartbreak. Other soul contracts are your blood family. You pick your blood family to expand you, not with to love you. But again, they're here to teach you something, and you decide that before you incarnate into your physical body. So then you have all these soul contracts, you have all these things you need to experience. Then you incarnate into your physical body. Now, if your physical body remembered all the pain and everything you're going to go through, and with all these souls, if you remembered it, then obviously you're not going to do it because there's going to be some resistance. Why would you want to go through something, even if you knew you had to a certain extent? There's still going to be resistance. That's where the veil of amnesia comes in. The veil is really there to still have a certain level of knowing when you meet somebody, but not enough that you resist it. And as you grow older, and as you start to do the work, and you start to understand you, and you start to understand your soul contracts, and also different times of year, the veil becomes thinner. That's when we can start to really dive deeper into understanding a journey, understanding the soul contracts. So yeah, that's my overview before we dive into kind of understanding the soul contracts, and that's just my view on how soul contracts come about, and how we kind of, a lot of people ask what's the difference between destiny and free will, and I feel like a lot of our deepest soul contracts, the people we're meant to meet, we will meet. But that's a whole different topic and maybe another episode. But Stace, how do you feel about soul contracts and how they come about? Knowing when they're coming to an end and when they run their course.
So I agree with you about soul contracts. I think that they're agreements that we enter into before we enter into this life. And I absolutely feel that they don't have to be romantic relationships. They can be, a variety of relationships and the way that they come into our lives. And I found that for me, when I have a significant soul contract with someone, I feel it really early on. And I would say our relationship is a great example of that. And we met in such a unique way. For those who don't know, Nimesh and I met on a social media app called Clubhouse that is an audio only app. And we happened to be in a room, in a speaking space together. And I was speaking and Nimesh heard me speak. He can talk more about that. But we started interacting and we developed this amazing connection pretty early on. And I knew this person is going to be significant in my life. I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like, but I knew that I felt something like a connection that felt strong right from the get-go. And so I would say, when it comes to soul contracts, be aware of what you feel when you meet someone, when you're around them. Some of those interactions just can have this more of a magnetic pull that you can't quite explain or understand, but it brings you to a space of having this significant experience with another person. As far as them ending, I find that when a soul contract ends, it's quite painful. It can be. I guess it doesn't necessarily always have to be. But of course, I'm going to go to a space right now of thinking about my past relationships and thinking about how those have come to an end. And friends, probably the most significant soul contract I've had in my life was with my ex-husband. In the book, I call him Mark, so we'll call him Mark here. But that contract started 26 years ago. And immediately I was magnetized to this person and felt like they were going to be a significant part of my life. And that relationship evolved and grew over time and then fell away. And I thought it was done. And we ended up reconnecting and remarrying and then divorcing again. And this is the first time where I have felt like the contract between me and him is done and final. And even though this process has evolved over so long, there's still grief because he was in my life for so long that I kind of had this expectation that he was going to be there forever. And that's the other thing. I think sometimes we can mistake these contracts for lifelong commitments, and they might not necessarily be that. And then I think about my engagement to Barney and the beauty of that relationship. You know, when we met several years ago, I had no idea that he would play such a significant role in my life in such an explosive way, that we would have this, beautiful connection that would then come to a close. And I think the reason I'm talking about the end of these contracts is because there can be some pain that goes along with that when you think that somebody is meant to be in your life for the long haul and they're not. And grief can be a heavy part of that. And it's something that I think we all have had an experience with in some way, where we thought someone was going to be in our life for good, forever, until our dying days, and they're not. And how do we handle that? So I definitely think, Nims, there's so many complexities to this, because we have relationships that are going to last and be intimate connections that we keep for a long time. And then we can also have soul contracts that evolve, right? And the contract might not necessarily come to an end, but it morphs into something different than what the relationship originally was. And I know for me, I hate admitting this, but I know for me, I tend to hold on a little tighter when I feel like something's coming to an end. It's like there's a fear of that change and what that means that gets me like death grip holding on. And it's something that I feel like, you were talking about destiny, we don't really have a lot of control over the end of that contract. Like when it's done, it's done. To me, it feels very like destined to close out. And I tend to have this death grip holding on. So I guess I have to explore that. But it is something I recognize in talking this out, is when something is coming to a close and I can feel it, it's very upsetting to me.
Yeah, I mean, so much in what you said, so many facets in what you said that, we can go so much deeper in. And first thing, I guess, just to clarify is, yeah, I mean, soul contracts are not just about romantic relationships with your blood family, your closest friends, anyone that's in your world that you have has a significant impact, including work colleagues and all the rest of it. It's all soul contracts, just different levels. So, I mean, I would say, think of all the people in your world, and just the way I always look at it is that the best place to start is just sit with the people and just think about the significant people in your life and ask, what are they here to teach? What am I meant to learn from them? What are they meant to learn from me? Just asking that question helps you to understand the people in your life. And when a soul contract ends, it doesn't mean a new agreement can't start. I mean, take if you're in a relationship and you have kids, The relationship may come to an end in its current form in terms of romantic, but you're still going to co-parent. So that's a new soul contract that comes about. And the other thing to always remember is just because a relationship ends doesn't mean the learnings from that relationship won't continue. So if you consider a romantic relationship you had in the past that was really intense, I would probably say that the learnings from that relationship you still get from time to time, maybe in new relationships. So it doesn't mean the learnings and the expansion that you got from an individual stops, but they don't need to be in your world. And when a soul contract ends, and the reason this topic is so relevant right now is I feel like as we continue through this phase of completion, that a lot of soul contracts can come to an end. And I also feel that the phase we've just been in and continue to go in, i.e., this completion phase, a lot of soul contracts came to an end. So, I look at my life personally, and so many friends, so many relationships that I thought were going to be in my life forever, they're no longer there. And sure, some of it was painful and some of it was ease and grace. But here's the thing: the more that you look inwards, the more that you ask those questions, the more you get insights. And the way that stays, sometimes we do stay in a relationship longer than we're meant to. And this is where I love the phrase "pain is inevitable, suffering is optional." So I would love to, if you listen to this episode, just look at the roles in your life and look at the roles and ask the people in your world and ask, is my soul contract with this person complete? And you'll get a feeling. And yes, we do stay in relationships longer than we do stay in friendships, all sorts, because we're worried about the emptiness that leaving that relationship is going to bring. But here's the thing: right now, we need to create a void in our world for new relationships to begin, because I feel we're meant to create new soul families, new people in our world that are going to hold us differently, that are going to allow us to grow. So look at the people in your world and ask, do I have people in my world that allow me to be, allow me to grow, or do I have people where I have to lower my vibration to be around? Then I would challenge you in creating a new soul family. And the other thing to bear in mind is, just because the soul contract's complete doesn't mean that that person needs to live your life. It just means you take your power back. Again, the same example: if you in a relationship, you got kids, there's still going to be a connection, a co-parenting connection, but you can take your power back. And how do you do that? Is you focus on you. Stacey talked about some of our relationships, and I'll give an example of mine. I'm not married, don't have kids, and I have a big extended family, 10 nephews, 3 nieces. I have a very close connection to all of them, and that's kind of my way of building that connection. But in a lot of relationships, I feel like I gave up too soon. There was like, I got that nudge that this wasn't going to last, and I walked away. And my last very significant relationship, I got engaged. I for a while I thought she was the one. Near the end, I knew she wasn't, but I stayed in because I didn't want to have any regrets. I knew that I felt at least that in other relationships I gave up too soon. So I was like, I'm going to give this one a full. And it's like near the end, I knew we were done. I knew that there wasn't. And the biggest thing, a lot of red flags, but the biggest thing was, as I said, I've got a big extended family, and this, this partner, she wanted me all to herself. She didn't want me to have friends. She didn't want me to spend time with my extended family, and that's who I am. My, time with my extended family. Of course, I'm going to give time to my partner, but knowing and being part of my extended family is also part of the deal. And most people love my extended family. They love that we've got that connection, and it was so strange. And but I wanted to make sure it was complete. I wanted to make sure that I'd given it full effort. And even near the end, we I organized a all expenses paid, like a 5-star retreat in Langkawi. Thought, you know what, let's give it a final go. And even then, I knew we were disconnected, and those things that happened at the end, which was just, yeah, it was very, very clear that we weren't meant to be. But at least I know in that relationship that it's complete. There's no, I don't think for a moment that there's more there. I know that our soul contract's complete. I also feel like I've integrated my learnings from it. So, but going back, I do feel like this is a time where we're being pushed to complete our soul, to enter into the next phase of new beginnings as clean as possible. So again, I ask you to look around in your world, and I'm very aware that with a lot of people, our friend circle has got smaller. We have had endings. We have had relationships come to an end and all the rest of it. And this phase we've just been in has probably felt lonely for a lot of us. Even if we have people around us, it still felt lonely because nobody really understood what we're going through. But I really do feel this next phase is about connection and community, and which is why we're pushing you to really look at your world and ask that question. Think of your world as you being the superhero, you being the Disney character, Disney princess, Disney prince, whatever, and everybody in your world is playing the roles that you asked them to play. This is the soul contract your soul created before you incarnated into this world. And if you're still holding on to people, then maybe the universe is gonna. That's where it becomes painful. That maybe the universe is gonna push you. I always love the phrase that God, source, whatever you want to call it, clears your path of people because He hears the conversations that they have about you behind your back. So what if the relationships that have come to an end were meant to come to an end? What if it was the universe clearing your path? What if you were meant to go through this recent phase and kind of almost clear your path so that when you go to the next phase, you have space for new vibrations, new people to come into your world? How does that make you feel, Stace, when I ask you that, this recent phase, have you felt like a lot of souls leaving your world? Do you feel like you have space for new people to come in?
I feel like I have space for a new season, and that might mean more people coming in. I definitely feel like my higher power has cleared space for that in my life right now. And, I have people that I love that I'm surrounded by, of course, but I also feel like a lot of space has been cleared recently. And I'm not sure what God's going to do with that. I don't know if that space is going to be filled with me serving people, if that space is going to be filled with a partner. Like, I don't know, but I definitely feel like some of the soul contracts in my life have come to an end to clear space for the new. And I'm just going to kind of be open to whatever that is, embracing the newness. There's an excitement. For those who don't know, I am embarking on a journey. I'm still going to be mentoring and coaching and doing readings. But I'm also going to be doing some local healing, and I'm going to be behind the chair a couple of days a week doing hair, and also providing Reiki services to people locally. And I have a feeling that that's going to open me up to some new connections, but I already see it happening. I'm going to be in a salon space with some new souls that I've just met. And I have no idea what those soul contracts look like in that setting. But, when you're working with people on a regular basis, you form connections with them. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this new space and this new season in my life and what those relationships look like. I have no idea who I'm going to come in contact with as I embark on this new beginning, but I'm here for it. I'm excited to see. I have a boss that is very connected and feels very committed to what she's doing. And I feel like there's a contract there to explore. And so I think right now I'm in a season of excitement because there's all this new beginning and new energy and new people. And I get to explore what those contracts look like. So I feel like space in my life has been cleared for this to happen. And I'm both excited and nervous, Nims.
I love it, and that's a great way to be, right? I mean, it's great to be honest about how you feel about this thing, and I'm sure a lot of people relate. A lot of people, can me included, can feel things shifting, can feel things different, but want to know more, and then not knowing kind of creates that uneasiness. I mean, my intention this year is definitely to do more in person stuff. I realize that a lot of what I do is online, like this podcast, etc., and I miss the human interaction. So my intention is definitely to do more stuff in person. So it's just an interesting time, and one of the things that you mentioned earlier that kind of I want to dive deeper into is, why do we stay in a soul contract longer than maybe we should? And a lot of the time, it's our expectations of what that soul contract was going to bring. It's the dream, especially when it's the romantic one. What did we expect? What was our dreams when we entered into that? Are we ready to give them up? Because we had all this expectation, and are we? There's part of us that probably think we wasted all this time, and this is the thing: you haven't wasted any time, because yes, humanly, you're going to sit there and think, "Oh, I've grown so much older," whatever clock and all that. But ultimately, you had a soul contract to complete. But knowing when that soul contract's done, and knowing when you're living a dream, you learn that by asking questions, by asking, what was I meant to learn from this soul? Have I learned everything I meant to? And by the way, if there's still learnings there, then you can try and close a soul contract. But if there's still learnings there, that person's going to stay in your world. And I love to call on Archangel Michael when I feel like some soul contracts are done. Call on energetic help, and I just close my eyes and just ask Archangel Michael to cut ties with that soul if I feel like we're done. Because that's the other question I get asked all the time: is why some soul contracts, people just leave your life and you don't even realize it, almost to a point, and why are some so painful? And there isn't a right and a wrong way, right? There is some souls, when you've completed the work, will just leave your world naturally. But when it's a deeper relationship, when it's multifaceted, when it's deep ancestral, that's when it becomes a bit more drawn out, a bit more potentially painful, because there's so much going on there. You're releasing so much karma, but you're also releasing your expectations. And it really is our expectations that keep us stuck. What did we expect from this relationship? I know that, when I started going out with when I started going out with the lady I was engaged to, and I thought we were going to get married. I thought she was the one. Gosh, to be honest, there's a part of me in the back of my mind doubted it. But again, I was thinking, I was being human, getting to a certain age and thinking, oh, I need to make this work and all that sort of stuff. And honestly, I'm glad I didn't. I actually, it was a point where I nearly moved to the US for a role, and she would have come with me. And I'm so glad I didn't do any of that stuff. So, but it's being gentle with yourself. It's being kind. So let me ask again: who in your world have you felt the soul contract? that maybe you're holding on to because of your expectations. You're holding on to because you're worried about what are you going to do with that space? Because the other thing is, as I said earlier, if you need to be honest with yourself, because if there's still learnings there, then that soul contract's not going to be done. And the other thing we haven't talked about, States, which we'll move on to next, is repeat programming, repeat contract. A lot of people say, I always attract this type of person, and why do I do it, and all the rest of it. And that's a soul contract too, to learn that lesson. But I don't necessarily believe in repeat programs. What I believe is that there's different levels of healing. So each relationship, even though it might be similar, is a different level of healing. So again, asking, excuse me, once you've learned that lesson, then you can move on to a different type of relationship. And Stacey said it was a clue. What if this phase of completion and starting this new phase of new beginnings is going to allow us to have a new type of relationship that's going to lift you up different? So, Stacey, how do you feel about repeat programming? How do you feel about when people say that, I always attract the same type of person, and you kind of start judging yourself? What's your view?
I would say I've absolutely been there. So that's the first thing to say. But I think when we start to see a pattern in what we're attracting, we've got to ask ourselves what we're putting out there. What vibration are we putting out there? Are we putting out there insecurity? Are we, standing in our power? If there's a pattern, I think it's important to take a closer look at it, because how many times do you repeat that same pattern before you get the lesson? And I do believe that things like that come up repeatedly, contracts like that are repeating themselves, it's because we're not getting the lesson. And it's important to get that lesson. For me, that was drawing addicts to me. And it's interesting because, I wasn't raised around any substances. I really had no exposure to that, but it's about the addict, not the addiction. And I really, really wrestled with this and repeating this type of soul contract. And it's taken me doing some work on myself and turning inward to really understand why I was drawing this to me. And that it had something to do with the dynamic of the relationship that I had as a child with my father. And recognizing that I am the common denominator in that repeat cycle, right? So recognizing that you play a part in that and confronting it. There's a reason why it keeps coming up, my friends. If you have a story with a soul contract that is repeating itself, there's a reason why. And I think it's so important to have the self-awareness to turn inward and take a closer look at ourselves. It's not easy to do. It's not. But if we're pointing the finger at the other person, what's that going to accomplish? That soul contract comes to an end, and then we're attracting that same thing back into our lives. And we've got to look at why. So, Nims, I hope that answers your question. To me, I've had to take a closer look at myself.
No, it does. It does. And thank you for such a vulnerable answer. And there's so much you raised. For example, you talk about your father, your dad, and he's not in your world, but he's still teaching you. There's still some stuff that you need to heal on, right? You just mentioned it, and it's like you go through this journey and you pick your blood family, and knowing what you was here to heal. And as Stacey, we've talked about it a lot, with what you've gone on. It's a lot around masculine, right? And it's just knowing your deeper healing that's required also gives you clue. So if you look at some of your major soul contracts you've had in your life, and see the thread, see what connects them. Is it a lot of addiction, as Stacey was talking about? Is it a lot of strong masculine energy? Is it a lot of narcissistic type of behavior? Is it a lot of maybe it's a lot of loving behavior? But you start to get clues when you look at the thread between the soul. Because here's the reality: we judge ourselves, right? We judge ourselves. Can't believe I did that again. There's no judgment here. There's no right or wrong. It's like when you enter into a partnership, into a relationship, marriage or whatever. It's just you are aligned, right? There is. I'm sure there's a lot of alignment between the two of you. You're in the same space. You're aligned. Maybe we want the same things. But then, as you do your work, as you do the healing, sometimes you stay aligned. Other times, you start to drift apart because whatever you experience is changing you. And this is the thing. But we still hold on to those dreams when we were aligned because we don't want to accept that. Hold on, this dream that we've created doesn't exist anymore. This fairy tale that. But be gentle with yourself because there isn't no right or wrong in this, right? We judge ourselves. Can't believe I did that relationship again. I keep attracting the same type of person. Yeah, you probably will until you look at the thread. But what if you got karma with that person? What if you have a past life with that person? You need to experience to release that karma. And it's when you start asking the deepest spiritual questions, you start to understand the people in your world. When you stop judging yourself. And when you start letting go, because again, why do we hold on to some soul contract? It's because we worry, what if that's the one? What if this person is all of a sudden going to change and we're back to that aligned person again? But you're not here to change people. And that's the other question to ask is, am I with this person expecting this person to change? Am I trying to mold this person into the person I think they should be or the person I want to be? We're not here to change people. We're not here to fix people. Whoever you're with, they are who they are. Yes, you'll both evolve and you'll both change over time. But if you try to change them fundamentally from who they are to the core, then that probably isn't the right intention. And it's having those honest conversations about the relationships in our lives and how they're expanding us, what they're teaching us, really help us to grow. Stace, we've experienced over the last few years some mutual friends leaving us too, and we again thought they were going to be part of our world for a long time. You described when we met. This is the thing: trusting your intuition. Going deeper into that story that you mentioned at the beginning, Clubhouse found me when during lockdown, right? We didn't have a lot of connection with other humans. I guess I was looking for a space to be able to speak, and I found Clubhouse, March, April time of 2020, just when lockdown was there, and it was a safe space for me to speak. Honestly, I joined for the first few weeks and didn't really feel it. Left it, but I came back, and I remember, the way Clubhouse works is, as Stacey was saying, it's an audio app. You're basically in the audience, and there's like a group on stage just talking. And I heard Stacey talk, and it was like she was talking so vulnerably about her story, and so authentically. And a lot of people talk about their story from a trauma dumping perspective, but I just felt Stacey was being vulnerable, authentic, in a way that she wanted people to learn and to grow from her experience. So I just felt compelled to go on stage. I wasn't planning to because a friend of mine at the time was co-running the room with her, and I didn't want to kind of steal his thunder and etc. And I was like, I just have to go on stage and just say, well done. I was driving at the time, and it's pretty much how our connection started. And honestly, for a while, I would go into Stacey's rooms, and I have this habit of asking. Anyone that's regular listener knows that I have this habit of asking these deep questions, and I just go in and ask her a question, whatever was channeled, and somehow I touch a raw nerve, and a lot of the time I ended up making her cry, and I was like, wait, and I'd go into a room and say, Stacey, are you sure you want to ask her a question? She's like, yeah, please do. And I'm like, and then this one time I just thought, what, the question that came to me is, Stacey, what are you trying to manifest? And from somewhere she said, I want to come to London. I was like, oh, wasn't expecting that. But the way she spoke, I knew that she was speaking from a truth. But again, I thought by the time she plans it and whatever, it'll be years' time. So I said, yeah. I was like, look, if you need somewhere to stay for a couple of days, sure. Didn't think anything of it. Stace being Stace, like a week later, she messaged me and she's like, are you free these dates? And those dates were in 6 weeks' time. So she trusted her nudge. She trusted. I'm like, sure, come along, come and visit. And again, my deal with my guides is I just trust, and I trust my intuition, and it felt like the right thing to do. And over the years, she's become a best friend. She's co-host of this podcast, but we do so much work together. And it's just trusting that nudge. And this is what I'm saying. Why don't you trust your nudges? And they work both ways. If you have somebody in your world you feel you're done, then gently let them go. If you meet somebody and you feel like they're gonna have a big impact in your future, then nurture that relationship. Trusting your intuition is such a big part of this journey. And you know what? Sometimes souls come back. Stace talked about holding on to soul. And if somebody's meant to be in your world, like I said, if soul contract's not complete, if you let them go, there's still work to be done, they'll be back. So what if you trust, and those souls that potentially done with, what if you let them go? And if there's meant to be more growth, they'll come back. So Stace, I shared more about our clubhouse beginnings. Anything you want to add about what your feelings were when we connected, and anything that you kind of felt?
I mean, for me, there's just been some significant relationships where I've just known from the beginning, this is something special. And I absolutely felt that way when we met. I was like, I'm meant to know this person. And I had no idea what that would look like, but there was just something for me about you that I needed to meet you. And so much of my life has shifted because of you. It's kind of bizarre to think about, I mean, I had barely ever traveled out of the country before we met. And, I've been to the UK and explored with you and seen some really incredible things. We've been to Mexico, you've been over here to the States. Like, there's been some adventures that we've had. We've gone to Florida, and we've done some cool stuff. And I'm so in awe that out of a social media app, right, an audio social media app, that the two of us, coming from such different backgrounds, different parts of the world, totally different experiences, have formed this bond that, I mean, we talk every day. Like, we might live in different parts of the world, but we literally talk every day. And it's just kind of cool to think that I knew something special was there. Like, meaning, like, I knew there was something about you that I wanted to get to know. But it's just so powerful that one soul contract can shift your life so significantly. And so I think this also brings us to the point of be open to the experiences that you have and the interactions that you have with people, because you never know in what moment something could shift and a powerful soul walks into your life that is a contract that's going to either be impactful or long-term, but somehow shift your life in some way. And it could be from the simplest interaction. And so I think it's just about being open to seeing what those relationships have in store for us.
Very true. And the way I look at it is reason, season, life, right? People in your world, sometimes for a reason, sometimes for a season, they just walk alongside you, and sometimes for life. And maybe it's multiple forms of that. And one of the things that that's interesting is sometimes souls are connections. For example, me and Stacey connected through a mutual friend who's no longer one in our worlds, right? So, but if we were meant to meet, we were going to meant to meet. Sidra's another example. Sidra, for those that don't know, is my mentor, my friend, who's no longer in this realm. But you know, the lady I talked about that I was engaged to, she's the one that introduced me to Sidra. She went to one of Sidra's courses and said, "Oh, you need to meet Sidra." This was in 2012, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll meet." And when I met Sid, I was like, "Oh, well, okay." And I was insisting that I wanted to work with a one-to-one, just because that's when I meet somebody that I want to. And then she was trying to convince me to go on some courses instead. In the end, we worked one-to-one together, and it just, yeah, I mean, she helped me understand the healer that I am, and if I wasn't introduced to her, would I have met her some other way? Probably, but maybe that's how I was meant to meet her. And one of the things we haven't talked about is what happens when somebody passes away, and Sidra's a great example of that. She passed away in a fire in March 2020. And I really thought we were going to raise the consciousness of the planet together. And, I supported her events in Mexico, Hawaii, India, Spain, UK. And I really thought we were going to carry on that work. And when she passed away, there was a knownness in me that she's exactly where she was meant to be. And there was knownness in me that our soul contract wasn't done. So I learned how to read Akashic records because I wanted to understand my soul contract with her. I knew we weren't done. So when I learned about the records and when I opened my records, and I understood more that our soul contract continues with her supporting me in the other realms and me doing the work here. So there's so many facets to this. It's not just as simple as, we have these people in there. There could be karma you need to release from past life. There could be ancestral karma that you need to release. We could talk about this sort of stuff for hours, but I really wanted to give you an insight just in terms of the soul contracts in your world and just taking a deeper look. So Stace, as we come to a close of this episode, I'm going to ask you about any final insights and any general prompts you have to share with our audience.
So I think it's worth taking a closer look and just seeing, what you have been through recently, maybe, and taking a closer look at the relationships that are in your life, and maybe writing about some of the soul contracts that you have in your life currently, or the ones that have come to a close, and reflecting upon those and maybe some of the lessons that you've learned through those relationships. I think it's also powerful to think about what you want to bring into your life and do a little bit of writing about the souls that you want to bring into your life and the types of contracts you desire to have. Because I do believe that we can draw some of that energy to us through the power of manifesting. Thank you so much for this episode. Powerful.
I love it. I love it. One of the type of soul contracts we haven't talked about, I really believe that anyone that works with us, anyone that kind of we take through mentorship or individually or together, or anyone that books an Akashic record, I feel like we have a soul contract. So if our voice resonates, even my croaky voice today, if it resonates and it touches your heart and soul, then maybe we're meant to work. I mean, both me and Stacey have so much to, you can mentorship individually, jointly. You can book an Akashic record individually, jointly. I know Stacey has a women's only Facebook group. I have a membership which I've just recently launched. So many ways to connect with us, and if our voices resonate, if my voice resonates, Stacey's, you can book a free discovery call. We'll take you through what the mentorship looks like. For me, maybe book a joint Akashic record reading or join our membership. It's a way of connecting with me differently on a monthly basis. We also have things like a monthly free Zoom call around the full moon, which is 90 minutes healing, which is free. And it's on Zoom, it's different. So there's so many different ways of connecting with us. I include both of our website links in the show notes and other links, etc. But here's the thing, the message I want to leave you with is be gentle, be kind with yourself. But this really is a time to create space in your world for new souls to come in. And just remember, when a soul contract completes, it's nothing lost. What you're doing is creating a space for for new people, for new souls to come in that are now aligned with this new version. Bear in mind, you've done so much work on yourself. You've changed so much. You've shifted so much. And what you need and what the souls that you need in this phase of your world maybe are different than what you needed before. So be gentle with yourself, be open, and allow magic to happen. Stacey, as always, thank you for being in this space with me. Thank you for sharing this light and using your voice. We're sending so much love and light out to everybody. You know, this is an interesting time. A lot of people are feeling physically ill. Be gentle with yourself. Be kind. This is still a phase of completion. New beginnings will come very soon. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, everybody. Sending love and light out. Bye for now.